Hey everybody! Welcome back to Footnotes. It's been a while, and today we have a kind of special treat. It's just us.
Just us today.
Just us today. I mean, I could go. If you want to run it tonight, I'd be absolutely fine with it.
No, thank you.
I've got like a lot of sessions to work on, actually.
Fair, but for 1 hour, can I just have you here for Footnotes?
You know what? It's fine. I've been locked behind the screen for far too long, and honestly, I've heard other people might even be prepping sessions as we speak.
Maybe somebody's prepping a session or two, or 10, or 20, or a full campaign. Who knows?
So we've got a lot of exciting things coming here in the near future, but before we get just to jumping, all as to what is to come, we should mention what's happened recently.
Yeah, a lot has happened since we last met. Because before these last two sessions happened with our last Footnotes, and so that's 2 bangers in a row that just haven't had any recaps.
Can you reach our big boy right there?
Yeah.
We've been fighting a whole bunch of powerful enemies, including this blue dragon here. You want to see what this guy looks like a little bit closer? He's up on our Twitter. Additionally, you guys have been so incredibly supportive. We've had a lot of new folks coming and joining our Discord, which is freely available. Regardless of where you're watching this, you could look below and get a link to join without paying a cent. We do want to give a quick shout out to Pause. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. We love you to death, and we appreciate all your support. On top of that, there's other kinds of support too, as you can see just below us. You guys have been really helpful in helping us get closer and closer to achieving our goal here for April. If you have Amazon Prime and you're not subscribed on Twitch, it is absolutely free to throw in a Twitch sub. You gotta click a button. It doesn't renew automatically. So if you signed up a while back and you're like, I don't have emotes anymore, you can click a button for free. We can see those beautiful Ralnors in chat.
Yeah, the cutest. No, the Silas emote's still pretty cute.
The fight for cute animal or cute animal guy rages on.
Right, because Ralnor is cute, but the little heart on the Silas.
Do you want to grab Ralnor too?
Yeah. Let me see where he is.
Ralnor's right. He was right next to the dragon. So we've had 2. You're right. You mentioned it. We've had 2 significant miniatures make their appearances recently.
Yeah.
Before we talk about all this crazy stuff we've got going on in the near future, you want to talk about the sessions?
Sure. First dragon fight of the campaign.
We started off not with the first category of dragon. Well, I suppose actually we did start off with a Wormling.
Right, we saw one. We didn't fight it. We thought it was cute and we played with it.
Right. Well, the first battle, the first attack you actually had against a dragon in this campaign was against the little blue Wormling.
Oh, right.
You fought the Wormling.
That was me. I was thinking all the way back to Caradoc.
Yes, Caradoc and his mother were the first 2 dragons you met, but as they were metallic, they were good. Now, here on our most recent sessions, you faced off against Fulguramar the Tempest and his spawn.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and just keep this here in view. You can join us. Now, you got to be... I've run dragon encounters before, but you and the other players were so passionate about how they felt. There was a lot of fear, tension, there was some anxiety, and also a lot of excitement to get to fight this thing.
Yeah, I'll say, as a player who's gone from level 1 to level 20 in one of your campaigns.
Okay.
Started from the very first session, ended at the very last session.
Okay.
Yes, started from the bottom. Now we are here. I have fought plenty of dragons. You like dragons.
I do.
I'll be the first to say.
I'm a dragon positive DM.
You like dragons, and they have never been slouches. They've always been something that is threatening, that we have to worry about, even if we are technically a higher level than whatever their, challenge rating is. I mean, we all have told the story of Kevril fighting a dragon in 12 seconds, but at the same time, it has never really been that I had that feeling that I could just go take on a dragon. Even whenever I hit 20th level, I still had this, innate fear of dragon fighting. Probably because we fought so many of them, and we always, except for the time when Kevril killed one in 12 seconds, we always felt really, really, really scared.
Right, and so one big thing about dragon fights from a game mastering standpoint is that when they're played intelligently, and generally speaking, dragons are quite wise and intelligent.
All but one.
All but the white dragons tend to be quite intelligent creatures, quite cunning. Is that when played that way, they're actually quite dangerous. You'll recall that even with the creature indulging the party and fighting you relatively close to the ground. When he decided the fight was over, the fight ended.
Right, there was nothing we could do to continue the fight, which kind of is like, okay, I'm the wizard. I should get fly. I should make one of my melee people be able to fly. I'm not going to fly. There's no reason for me to be in the air.
Well, we saw Laurentius, a similar character to you, doing some flying this last session.
He has a sword.
He does.
He has
He
a
did
sword.
stab the dragon to death.
He did stab the dragon to death. He has a sword. I think maybe me not being the person flying is a good argument for getting flying anyway.
Now, I think that's a great thing in general, because there are going to be more flying enemies coming in the future, especially now that you've seen those flight stands in action. But I will mention that fly is a slower movement speed than what this guy can do.
Right, but you could get up to him.
Get
maybe.
closer.
Right, if he's doing just like, okay, if I were a dragon and I were fighting a bunch of people standing on the ground, I would just make passes overhead, breathing on them.
Yes, and that actually happened to you.
Right.
After the first fight with Floromar, you had to run between cover and cover as he was breathing lightning down upon you. Now, you guys actually won in the end.
Right.
It took... I'm actually not sure how many total hit points were left in the whole party, but I want to say we had something like 10 total levels worth of spells, if that.
I had no leveled spells left at the end of the fight.
You'll love to hear it.
Wizard was out of spells. I was using cantrips at the end.
Okay, and I think that's a big thing to mention. Is now you did have an encounter. The past couple sessions were, as many adventures are, actually over a shorter period of time than real life was, as you faced off against Fulgoromar twice in a single day, as well as his army of kobolds.
Right, and I think that there's a little bit clarification towards the end of that fight.
Okay.
I was feeling a little guilty for how everything ended. When I just blew up like 100 kobolds.
Now, we
as
did...
a group of party, just blowing them up.
Now, I will say this. At this time, because of the nature of that fight and the party's inability to do 30 damage total in a single explosion, you're quite in luck, as due to the presence of the prevalence of healers among this community, you have not committed a kobold massacre, but instead a decisive defeat of that army.
Right. I think that the thing is, when looking back at why do I feel so guilty whenever I just was willing to blow up a bunch of people, the presence of the Wormling.
Yes.
The presence of the Wormling. And I get it. Like, this guy was a bad dude.
He was. Fulgoromar, absolutely.
We just Batmaned this little dragon.
You did Batman someone.
Right. And
now, before, I believe the most often referred to as Batman character of our campaign has been Bastellus.
Yeah.
Maybe Bastellus was the Wormling the whole time.
Yeah, Bastellus was the Wormling. He's just a time traveler. No, it's hard because dragons are super intelligent creatures and they have all these plans and they live forever, and it's very hard to kill it. It's very hard as a player to justify killing a dragon even whenever it's like I'm going to devour the world. I can't explain why.
It's interesting.
I cannot explain what the logic is other than it's kind of like killing an elf. Like, I have a weird feeling about killing elves, too, because they live so long.
He was 415 years old.
Right, and that's
He remembers the birth of Gwynwyn's kingdom. He remembers a time before Eltz was free, and before the last time Eltz was freed from Veruxi control.
Right, and so it's a little bit hard, and I get it. It's this weird thing that happens as a player whenever you're in these larger scale combats and you're defeating people, and you're just like, oh yeah, I blew up 30 kobolds, whatever. Like, we didn't kill all of them, but like, even if we would have, I think that we would have been like, I blew up 30 kobolds. But this long, drawn-out fight with somebody who's speaking with you, and he's got a kid, and he's standing there watching all of this happen, like, it was just rough.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the words to describe why, though.
I think it's kind of interesting. Something as a GM you have to be cognizant of is that sometimes your players will go for things in orders you didn't expect, which can change the tone of the fight. Alternatively, sometimes players go for different solutions to problems. So just as an example, in the most recent encounter, our players didn't actually attempt any form of diplomacy or communication with the kobolds who were there. Now, granted, these kobolds were yelling about how they were going to eat the elf and to capture Silas. So it's not necessarily immoral in any way, but you didn't get that information directly from them.
It's always hard as a singular player in a table of 5 players.
Okay.
Because there's probably been a time for each and every one of us where we've wanted to speak up and kind of like slow down, let's talk this out, let's hash it out. But whenever most of the table is in this like, let's go fight, any one of us who may have had that feeling would have a harder time kind of slow down, because you are also trying to match the energy of the rest of the players at the table.
I actually think that's not a good goal, necessarily.
I don't think it's a good goal. I'm saying I think that's what happens.
Okay.
I know that I was just like completely gung-ho and didn't even think about diplomacy until after. But if anybody at the table would have thought about it, it would have been hard whenever it's like, I want to go fight this thing. I'm going to cast all my big spells and do all this splashy stuff. Next turn, on my turn, can I talk to the dragon and ask him what he's actually trying to do here? You know,
the fireball lord.
It kind of takes combat in a different direction, and I think at a table of 5, it's something that we all should be a little cognizant of as players.
Okay.
So that's really where I'm going with it. It's not like oh no, this is a bad thing that happens, but it's more of a, if any of our players thought maybe we should try to figure out what's going on here, or maybe we should try to convince them to leave, because even between sessions I thought, let's convince him to just leave. We don't have to kill him, we could just make him leave. But then I thought, oh, well, he'll just do it somewhere else. You know? Yeah,
and we actually learned a little bit. I'm going to reference something that was out of some off-camera stuff that we learned actually after session, that my intuition was, I would say it was the most incorrect I've ever felt. We actually learned from Jake, as I had expected, if anyone else in the party, for the most part, had been the one to take the last hit on the dragon, they would have spared the dragon. But Silas would have been the exception. And we kind of had that in that Thorn killed the dragon in Silas's name. But Jake, out of character, has said that Silas wouldn't have been able to do it. And I'm really excited to see where Silas goes here, because, you know, maybe as you learn more about Fulgoramar, the truth is going to color what happened here in this battle.
I mean, we can say we picked up on the fact that the Wormling said something like conquest. His conquest has failed or something.
These lands were his.
Right. He said something. He was amassing a literal army. So I think that we made the right. We didn't find out entirely what his plans were, but I feel like with the information that we have, we probably made the right call. Kill the dragon that's amassing an army. But it is still hard, you know, as a player to weigh your actions, especially whenever you have a lot of time after the fact. And we do these recaps and we do these retrospectives really on these.
And we have them recorded.
Right. And so now whenever you go edit the session later, you gotta go listen to yourself being like, haha, kill the dragon. And it's like, well, did I make the right decision in the moment? It's always hard, I think.
Well, I think you all made decisions that led to a story that I was excited to be a participant in, and I think it was quite fun for those at home to go along with.
Yeah.
And now we don't only play games. Excuse me. We don't only play games here on stream. We recently actually played a bit of Star Wars 5th Edition, a D&D 5e overhaul made over by some absolutely incredible people.
Yeah.
I highly recommend if you're interested in how that was made, checking out their Discord. They also have a subreddit. But we've played a Star Wars 5e one-shot recently. And you're also going to be running something very exciting, just as our home game. But I thought it could be fun to, you know, we can tell a little bit here. We can share some of that.
Yeah, I'm going to be running a Pathfinder 1st Edition.
Love it.
Adventure Path.
Let's get crunchy.
Total Adventure Path is called Carrion Crown. It is their first foray into Gothic horror. And there are 6 books across it. And I'm really excited. We did a long time ago, so I'm going back and like trying to figure out what everybody did, but a long time ago we did session 1. And I don't want to do the reboot, but I want to do a recap, and I'm really excited to run it. Okay.
Just to clarify, for folks who may not know, an adventure path for if you've only ever played Dungeons & Dragons is going to be similar to the modules that come in single-bound books. Carrion Crown shares a lot of similarities in that undead and spooky theme as Curse of Strahd.
Yes.
And so whereas Wizards of the Coast tends to release their adventures in a single, or in some cases in 2 hardbound books, the Pathfinder Adventure Path was a series of releases that would happen several times a year, and the 6 issues in a row would be about a single adventure path, a single story that built as you went. And
yeah,
so
and
we have all of the story available.
Right. We've done some of the, they've now done some that are only 3.
Yes.
So they've done 2 in a row that were just 3, so they were shorter.
They create also individual, they create shorter modules, but the adventure paths are the largest version.
The Pathfinder adventure paths are the module equivalent in 5e.
Yep. And we get to run it.
I'm going to say this.
Oh.
One thing I said yesterday, it's like a movie that I have to make happen. You know, like I have to create it in order to actually see how it plays out because I don't know what they're going to figure out. I don't know what the directions they're going to want to go.
Lots of mysteries.
Lots of mysteries. And number 2, I'm obsessed with book 3. And we're in book 1. So I need to get us through to there so that I can run that portion because for me that is just like everything I want in gothic horror and everything that it kind of takes different journeys into different types of horror throughout the 6 books. But number 3 is where it's at for me. So I'm really excited to get to run it. It's going to be you and Quella are going to be my players.
Yes, we've actually been working a little bit on refining our character concepts from when we built them for the original. We played one session a couple months back, and now that we've learned a little bit more, practiced some more, we're going to do a little bit of a retrain, a rebuild, and start back in that campaign. Now, they've got this incredible concept that I think is going to mesh really well with the character I've been working on as we're playing with something called Gestalt characters. Because there's only 2 players, which is lower than a normal campaign, we'll actually be running with essentially, you can sort of think of it as like a stronger version of multi-classing. We won't get too into the nitty-gritty here, because I don't think that's what we need here on the footnotes. Right. But needless to say, we'll be actually running, we'll have multiple classes, we'll be much stronger than the average Pathfinder character, and I am going to get to smash some skeletons.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me because we had done test recordings before we started streaming. We were doing test recordings.
It's how we determined if these worked.
Yeah, it's how we figured out our equipment worked. And so now that I'm going back and listening to myself DM, I don't know how you do it. It's very jarring to listen to because the DM talks the most. And I think that I speak for most people when I say, about hearing your own voice for 4 hours straight.
I know you all at home enjoy listening to me speak, and I appreciate it. Truly, I'm so lucky. Oh God, it's so bad. No, absolutely. I can't fake it for more than about 15 seconds. It's absolutely a challenge. Whenever you create any sort of content, there is an amount of reflection you have to make on your mannerisms, your method of speech, and also even just your twitches and tells that show up on camera, your tics that you have in the way that you speak.
Listening to yourself. Also, I am comfortable with 5e. I'm familiar with 5e. I get it. I know how it works. I've done a lot of it. I've not done a lot of Pathfinder, and so it was interesting in the sections that I felt comfortable with, because before we did any of this, I also did part of Curse of Strahd, and the parts of the game that I feel comfortable with and like describing the spooky stuff, coming up with like flowery descriptions of what the gravestones look like, that kind of thing, I'm comfortable.
Set dressing matters a lot, even in Pathfinder.
I'm comfy in that world. I feel good there. And then we hit combat, and Pathfinder is a little bit crunchier than 5e, and there's the stat blocks are so much longer for simple monsters.
Interesting.
They have so much more information in them. I feel like there's a lot of, I won't say dead space inside of 5e, but I feel like every word in the Pathfinder stat block means something.
I like that. Now, something I'm excited to talk about here, because we have your upcoming Pathfinder campaign, I think we have to bring up a Lilia Arendral.
Yes.
So Elle, as many of you have seen, is a fast martial magic hybrid character using a class called the Magus. Well, I did write the Magus homebrew, the version of the rules that we're using here. The Magus as a flavorful sort of concept is actually, the soul of it comes from Pathfinder 1st Edition. Those incredible developers over at Paizo, alongside there's been an absurd number of playtesters for the system over the years, have refined the Magus, a sort of spell blade, in order to create this class that I think is one of my favorites in Pathfinder. And I brought it over to 5e because we really liked the energy of it. Clella was very interested in playing someone of a similar sort of abilities. And I want to talk a lot about homebrew tonight.
Okay.
I've got a couple things that I want to get in there because I've got secrets to spill to you. I've got questions for everyone, including my dear Victoria here. We've got the Magus. Now, the Magus has not yet been released, but we'd love to see that happening here in the near future. It's coming through the final version of certain edits. We're doing some additional play testing here in the background to make sure that we're happy with both some of its higher level features you've yet to see on the channel and one of the other archetypes which has not made an appearance. But the Magus isn't the only homebrew we do here.
Correct.
We've seen plenty of monsters. Fulguramar was more than a little bit different, warped from the version of the dragon you'd find in the monster manual. Similar, but essentially a middle step between a young and an adult blue dragon. During our last campaign, our dear Jake, now playing Silas, he previously played a cleric by the name of Grandrum. Now, you remember Grandrum.
I remember Grandrum.
How would you describe him generally, powers-wise?
Grandrum was a storm sorcerer abjuration wizard. Cleric.
Yes, so
Or if you were playing in Pathfinder, a weather domain cleric.
So, well, he did have some limited abilities to weather.
Yeah.
Grandrum actually wasn't based on the weather or the sky. Grandrum was actually just based upon frost.
In general, but you can really get specific.
Hail and snow.
Yeah. But it was part of why I had any interest in the abjuration wizard. It was
Yes.
one of the things you created for Grandrum.
So we have, and maybe we should release this over on the Discord in the near future.
Absolutely.
So for Grandrum, we actually went ahead and created a brand new domain just for Jake. As well, he knew he wanted to play a cleric. He had a very specific, see Jake in chat saying Baydrum. A very specific goal in mind when it came to what he wanted to make. And with that, he kind of wanted to be a little more elemental themed. Taking one of these domains from his god, narratively, we built out the Frost domain. And when I was, especially since it was one of my first subclasses I worked on, I think that one of the best ways you can make homebrew is by leaning on existing material and ensuring you're not exceeding what it can already do. And so Frost domain clerics, being quite distinct from other clerics, have a small number of abilities at each of those typical advancement levels. Their earliest one is actually similar to Ismini, as they have the ability to create a glacial shard that orbits them like an Ioun stone.
I can't remember, because with the arcane ward that you get from being an abjuration wizard, you can project it to defend other people.
Yes.
Could Grandrum also project his ward?
Grandrum did not have the ability to project it in quite the same way. Instead, he had a few other abilities that sort of augmented him in different ways. And when I say that, what I mean is that when creating the glacial shard for the Frost domain, we actually took the first abjuration ability from your subclass that Ismini now plays, changed the mechanics ever so slightly, a little bit of a tweak, changing quite a bit of the flavor and making this sort of magical ice. And then as it progressed, we used other classes, other subclasses. In fact, one of his abilities was actually based upon a commonly used magic item known as a frost brand, which could magically extinguish flames in a nearby area.
Yeah. It's interesting to see what you can do by just picking and choosing. And this kind of brings me back to Star Wars 5e a little bit too.
Okay.
Because a lot of Star Wars 5e is think of your class, but adding to it or augmenting something in it. So for example, the monks in Star Wars 5e are a 5th edition monk plus. And it's super exciting to see. Or the fighters are Battlemaster fighters.
And we should clarify,
plus.
None of this at all is a criticism of 5th edition.
No.
We play 5e more than any other system.
Right.
It's incredibly easy to jump in. It's a delight to both play and dungeon master for. And we've had so many good stories here. It would be hard to leave.
Right, but it's fun to see how people take from these different classes. So for example, with the Frost Domain Cleric, or, like I was saying with Star Wars 5th edition, where there's like either whole cloth new things created or borrowing concepts out of other classes, which, I love bards, I love bardic inspiration, and I hop over to 5th edition for Star Wars, and that is in the engineer class. You have something that functions similarly to, though not the exact same as, a bardic inspiration die. And so for me, it was fun to kind of go and look and see, okay, what are other people creating homebrew-wise, and where are they getting these ideas from? I think it's fun.
And there's a lot of people out there making incredible homebrew content. As we've started streaming here over on Twitch, we've actually been meeting a bunch of folks over on the tabletop role-playing game sort of community on Twitter. And one of the things we want to do, both because we love playing games, telling stories here, and also to kind of thank those folks out there, is we're going to be running some one-shots in the near future and doing a creator showcase. We're working with a few creators already, and in just a minute I'll be explaining a little bit more of how we want to expand that out even more. We're going to be looking at maps, items, homebrew, subclasses, and even full classes to then build a story around to show you all in a single session, one evening where we display all of these incredible works that we've gathered together, making sure to include all sorts of links and images and all of the social media connections, so that you're able to go and maybe add these to your home games, or if they're parts of a show, find more places that are using that sort of homebrew content that you're excited about.
I'm excited to see what all is out there, because I know that I've seen some of, people talking about what they've created or getting links to some of the things people have created, but I haven't played with it yet, and I'm excited to.
Now, it's great you're saying I've heard of so many great people. Well, if you or if anyone at home have someone in particular you think might have content that you'd like to see in action, why don't you go let us know in the Discord so we can go ahead and try to get in touch with those folks, talk about what we're working on here, get all the appropriate permissions, of course.
Right, and if you happen to be a creator yourself, let us know.
Yes, if you make something, if you sell something that you think could be fun to could be fun in a 5th edition game, we'd be more than happy to go take a look, and hey, maybe we'll see it here on the table.
Fill our cart with different bits of homebrew.
Yes. We've got lots of creators who we've already spoken to here, and we're really hoping to make something that just represents just a snapshot of what's going on in the community, because there's no way to encapsulate everything all at once. And so we'd love to hear your requests for people in the community, and because of course I'm never one to avoid legwork here, I'm also interested if you have something that you'd like to have been homebrewed, but you've not yet seen. Come over to our Discord and go ahead. You can even at me. Yes and no. I've asked someone to at me. It's a bad decision.
Bad decision there.
But if you have something that you're interested in, a subclass, perhaps even a monster, let me know, and we can chat a little bit. And I'm happy to create a couple of things for this upcoming creator showcase, so that we can continue having a unique night here together. We're also going to be doing a secret vote over on that Discord. So if you've not joined the Discord, you can do it right now. It's fantastic.
Secret vote?
Well, so it's a secret to you because you have no idea what the vote is for.
Correct. I don't have any ideas.
So this vote is for an upcoming class or subclass that I will be making that will be eventually revealed on either the Creator Showcase or for a future backup PC on Stories to D4's main channel, on our main campaign. As
Meaty jumps into a fire.
Oh no! Meaty, no! As we've seen the mages here, there are other things in the Pathfinder system that I'm really excited to see how they could be represented here in 5th edition. And I should say, these also could appear as non-player characters or things in one-shots, but I've got a trio of classes that are mostly unique to the Pathfinder system. They've been adapted to other systems, and even there are some homebrew options there, but I'd like to tweak at one of these. And if I can get our community to help us decide which, I think that would be a lot of fun. We have the Inquisitor, a sort of skill-focused source of divine judgment. Unlike the Paladin, who's often depicted as something like a holy knight or a smiting warrior, an Inquisitor would be someone who roots out those who have broken the tenets of their faith. Someone who maybe isn't quite as martially focused and has the ability to impart judgments on their foe.
So I know this is probably slightly incorrect, but I always think them as divine bards.
Divine Bard is actually an excellent way to think about it, and in a lot of ways, that's kind of the way that sort of homebrew would start, is we'd figure out what parts of other classes do we like. We don't take them entirely out of anything, but we can talk about, and you've seen my big sketches when I work on my homebrew, of taking what are the thematic aspects that we like, and where can we find mechanical analogs to them. The second option is the Oracle, a sort of spontaneous divine caster with a pair of interesting quirks. Each oracle has access to a special divine mystery, giving them revelations into some nature of the cosmos, their deity, or even powerful beings from around the multiverse. But all power comes with a cost, and oracles often are paired alongside a curse and a nigh unbreakable deficit that often leads to some roleplay opportunities and perhaps even strange powers.
I like to call this one the best class in Pathfinder.
Yes, we know. I'm very confident in your, or I'm very happy to say that you found a class that you absolutely love when playing Pathfinder.
Yes.
I also would
Not
mention
to show my bias.
both of these classes that we've discussed can absolutely be played without homebrew, using more of just flavor and not mechanics. The Inquisitor can be made relatively easily with the Ranger, Cleric, and Paladin classes, though they will be focused slightly differently in combat than perhaps we would like them to be in Pathfinder. And the Oracle is made excellently, in my opinion, with the Warlock.
You know what? That's actually fair. Get a patron with some more downsides.
The final option I'm putting on the table for the folks who are going to be voting in our Discord, just for this first one, is the Vigilante.
Never mind.
Vigilante is absolutely an oddball when it comes to Pathfinder, being not just a combat-focused class, as many of the adventuring classes available to players are, but also having the ability to shift between their combat form of their masked hero, dancing through, leaping across rooftops, jumping over buildings, and catching speeding bullets. Who knows how the Superman lingo goes? But also jumping into their true form, their socialite, or their person hiding on the streets. They have these alter egos that they can swap between.
Not to spoil anything for anybody, but Batman.
Yes. So Vigilantes, I do believe, are something that, unlike the first two, the Inquisitor and the Oracle, I believe are much more going to be dependent on your setting. If your setting doesn't have large cities with a complex social web with which multiple parties are playing through, advancing, or plotting the ruination of others, Vigilantes may not be the most ideal for your sort of setting.
Right. If you're doing a lot of travel, anyway, that's already going to be hard. And then if it's a lot of travel in between, like, disconnected hamlets, it's going to be even harder, because part of the Vigilante class in Pathfinder, and you're leveling up through it, has to do with your renown or your infamy, really.
And the reason that these three particular classes have been chosen as potential options for homebrew that we would be releasing to you, the viewer, is because each of them has been represented by at least one character in our upcoming adventure on Stories to D4. I have a major NPC, friend, or foe. The party will be meeting with powers based upon my particular interpretation of these three Pathfinder classes. Oh, in Elts. There is an Eltsian Inquisitor, Oracle, and Vigilante. There might be more than one Vigilante, but we'll have to wait and see. The Magus, for those of you who may not know, actually rose about as a homebrew here because our party previously traveled with a Magus named Delilah, the mother of Clella's character Ililie. Now, the party will occasionally be traveling with our dear friend Arcus, better known as Chester Piffle. Chester is a vigilante, having quite a bit of a difference between his two states. The party hasn't fully explored that quite yet, but we'll have to wait and see. Those votes will be happening not quite yet. We'll be putting more information on our Discord, but once we're gonna get the specifics kind of ironed out here, and we'll be asking for feedback from our community on our Discord, which is free to access. So much homebrew.
So much homebrew.
Why am I not behind a screen right now? There is a screen. It's so heavy. It's made of wood. Thank you again to our dear ECAT for making our wonderful table and our screen, as it's really helped us tell stories here. Victoria, are you ready to fight the other dragons next session?
What other dragons?
You know, all the other dragons. The ones that were suspiciously off screen.
Yeah. Okay, so see, across from me, I see a beholder, I see bold and brash, and I also see Tiamat.
You were referring to the artwork on the far
on the other
wall.
where I normally sit. And I see that we fought blue. But were there other colors of dragons kind of like hiding up in the skies that we happen to not notice?
Well, so Schrodinger's dragon is a principle that essentially implies that should your dungeon master not yet have the next adventure prepared, it is always possible that a chromatic dragon descends from the skies. Truly, a most terrible fate does not exist. A more terrible fate does not exist. Hey, it's a blue dragon!
Yep, easy. Just pop that on the mat.
We'd love to hear your feedback when it comes to the stories we've told so far over on our YouTube page. If you want to go ahead and comment with your thoughts on the individual sessions, or if you want to interact with us on our Discord, taking your feedback is alongside with all of the communications you have here really helps us both grow the channel and find out what sort of stories you like to be told. Though our next session is going to involve our party potentially claiming a dragon's hoard, in just a few weeks, we'll be beginning this start of our second book. Essentially, a hard sort of reset. It's the same characters that you know and love, that we'll be starting with a nice solid introduction, and if you're not caught up quite yet, it'll be a perfect jumping on point as we'll have a nice, strong recap, a clear introduction to our players, and the visit from a horrible BBEG. I don't prime you enough for these, it would seem.
I am hearing this term for the first time in relation to what we're doing every week.
I told you basically, hey, we're going to talk about the mages a little bit.
Yeah. I got to be surprised by a few things. I did not know. And I will not sway voting.
I believe Victoria is about to sway the voting.
But I'm very excited about all three options offered, but one of them is my favorite class in Pathfinder.
What I think we're gonna do is we might set a. I'm gonna set a time limit on the Discord. We'll create and pin a post to allow everyone to come in and vote, and we will let people have these verbal bouts to determine which of these is the most desirable for the next homebrew from stories to D4.
Ismini jumps into a fire.
Ismini leaps into a fire. Silas rages, thinks more about his pa, who he accidentally got killed.
Oh, I'm doing that so that I can play the homebrew class.
Oh, I know why you're doing it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. This is not
because all three of these, I believe, are things that you've expressed interest in playing in the past.
One of them is the one that I mentioned yesterday.
Oh! And then another one of the Oracle is something that I'll be playing in your campaign at home.
And then yesterday I tried to start Wrath of the Righteous with an Inquisitor.
Yes. If you haven't already, we're not sponsored by them, but we'd love to do a quick shout out here. If you haven't already, there are a couple of incredible games that use both the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule set as well as the Pathfinder 1st edition rule sets, both which we love here on the channel. If you are interested, if you've ever played any of the old Baldur's Gate games, Baldur's Gate 3 has an incredible implementation. It's also great if you've ever played Divinity Original Sin. It's made by Larian Studios and has a lot of the features I know and love from that game, which, hey, we beat that.
We beat that. Let's do it again, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Maybe I'll stream that over on my stream.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Great.
And also, for those of you who want something and to get that you can get really nitty-gritty on the actual mechanics and optimization sense, go ahead and check out the Wrath of the Righteous implementation by Owlcat Games. They've made now 2 of the adventure paths, Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous, and you're able to play through them from first level all the way out to tier 4 content. Not a lot of tier 4 content is available, especially in the digital space.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend checking those out if you want to try something out over on PC.
It's why I need to run and finish Carrion Crown before Owlcat decides that they're going to just make the Gothic Horror one next. I don't know what they're planning, but if they did... Hey, Owlcat, you hear me? I know. The entire studio is currently in chat right now. They're all very excited for what's happening. They are all shadow banned, weirdly, so only it's coming up here. However, Owlcat, if you create Carrion Crown, it'll really light a fire under this one and get us going. Yeah. Because you'll have to finish before the game comes out. I can't even imagine how it would be implemented. That's the thing. Like I fantasize about, ooh, it'd be so cool to see it play out, like in a digital space too. But
I only have two more things I want to say. Do you have anything else?
I'm great. You've surprised me a lot today.
Well, what I want to say first is I hope you're all having a wonderful time on your actual home games or whatever other shows you're consuming, whatever stories you're going through, you're experiencing right now in the tabletop space. We'd love to hear about them. Come hit us up on social media. Come join the Discord. We'd love to chat about stories regardless of systems. If you're playing Bubble Gumshoe, Pathfinder, if you're over there playing GURPS, you can talk to us.
Okay.
We'll help you get through it.
We'll listen.
We'll listen. We on Stories with D4 love telling stories, but we really would love to interact with the community more and hear of the stories you have going on at tables back home. Finally, I'm going to have to ask you all to roll for initiative. There's a surprise round. None of you have been making active perception checks this entire time, and because you've chosen to do that, the enemies have snuck up, and before you knew it, the end of Footnotes has come.
All right. Well, guys, happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Yeah, since we didn't say it at the front.
Yeah, I was like, if you're celebrating something, cool. Hope you're having a great time. If you're enjoying your weekend, great. I hope you put your phone on silent. If your boss is texting you, don't worry about it.
Unless you have to.
Don't take career advice from Stories to D4.
Do not take career
or
advice.
legal advice or medical advice.
No medical advice.
Can they take a dungeon mastering advice? I'm accredited. Thank you so much for joining us on Footnotes. I've been Matthew. This is Victoria. We've been having a fantastic time chatting with you here. We'll see you this Friday with the follow-up to Fulguramar the Tempest.
I'm excited.
Good night, everyone.
Night.